Today, I want to share with you a passage from a book that I've listened to before, and then I picked up and started reading again. And many of you have probably read it, but it's really great. It's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. And it's this really simple kind of a parabled book, meaning it tells a story. And there's a lesson in the beginning of chapter 2 that I want to share with you all. And so this passage is a little bit long. And as I'm reading through it, what I would like for you to do is to think about this question. What is the moral of this story? What is the moral of this story? So here's what it is. There once was a man named Koda who built some of the finest houses in all of Tokyo. His work became world famous due to his dedication to the process, his willingness to beat on his craft, and his relentless devotion to keep learning even late into his career. Eventually, though, Koda grew tired of building homes for other people and he was ready to retire. He had been building homes for over 30 years and he was ready to move on. He wanted to travel and spend lots of time with his grandkids. One day, Koda approached his boss and turned in his 2-week notice. His boss said, Koda, we are forever indebted to you for the magnificent work you have done for our company, and we are so grateful you've worked for us for so long. We do have one favor to ask of you, though. Could you please build one more house? It is a very important house for a very important client, and everyone in the company agreed it needs to have your magic touch. Koda was frustrated. He would have to cancel 2 trips and postpone his new life, all for one house. He told his boss that he needed a day to think about it. After talking it over with his wife, he gave in and decided he would build one more house, but he told his boss, this is the very last one. But while Koda had agreed with his head to build this last house, his heart was no longer in it. He had always been very hands-on through the entire building process, always selecting the finest materials by hand and making sure every detail was diligently tended to. But this house was different. He viewed it more as an obligation than an opportunity. He delegated much of the work, and consequently, a lot of the things started slipping through the cracks. The house would be up to code, but as it started to come together, it was obvious that it lacked the wow factor that Koda's other homes were known for. Koda knew in his heart that this was far from his best work, but he was over it and ready to move on to the next phase of his life. The next phase was much more appealing and important to him than the present phase. After 4 months had passed, Koda finally finished the house. He went back to his boss telling him, I did what you asked. Now I'm asking one last time for your blessing to retire. His boss said, thank you, Koda. We just have one more thing. Now Koda was beginning to get really upset because he thought they were going to ask him to build another house. His boss reached into his desk, pulled out a very small black box with a red ribbon tied to it. He handed the box to Koda and said, we are so grateful for you, Koda. This gift is a token of our appreciation. Koda pulled the ribbon, opening the box to discover a set of shiny new keys. His boss smiled, the house is yours. You deserve it. Immediately his heart sank. Unbeknownst to Koda, the whole time he had been building his own house. If he had only known he was building his own house, he would have cared so much more. He would have only used the finest materials and would have overseen every detail and given it his all like he had always done, but now it was too late. So what's the moral of that story? Why do you think, and if you're in a noisy place, pop it in the chat box. If not, take yourself off mute. Why do you think I share that with you? You are always building your own house. Thank you, Helen. Yep, that's great. What else?
Well, I kind of see that as doing the same as for others as you would do for yourself. So, you know, what kind of quality would you do for yourself? That's kind of what I would like to give my clients.
Yep.
That's what I intend to give my clients every time I work with them. You know, what do I expect?
Great point, Rosalind.
I just also
go ahead.
I just also feel like some questions should have been asked if he knew that he was done and his, you know, employers weren't having open conversations about him being over it because he was choosing to not perform at his best with that last house, and conversation should have been had, and I feel like.
Conversation between who, Jenny? I'm not sure if I follow that.
Between the guy and the employers, so that they knew like he was done and his heart wouldn't be in it. So why would they want that as the owner of the business, to have a lackluster product?
Maybe they knew and were teaching him a lesson. Could be.
Wow.
Well, I have a question because coming from the builder world, did he not get to pick out his own cabinets and flooring for his own house? Just thinking.
So here's what I want
I
you
think
to
that,
get.
oh,
Go ahead.
I think that what I heard the lesson was that if your heart isn't in something, it's probably not worth doing. And so you have to know your why behind it, or it's not worth it.
That's it. That's it, Sarah. That's what I wanted you guys to get, right? Here's what it's all about, guys. Two things. One, every outcome is ruled by intention. And maybe it was a month and a half or 2 months ago, I did a presentation for the Anderson Group, and we talked about becoming invaluable. And what that really was all centered around was, how do you find meaning in your role? And so, like, when I was preparing for this, I started to create this list, and I have probably shared this with some of you, or I've repeated this over time. But when you think about the role we play in people's lives, one of them was the wealth manager, right? I build wealth, or help people build wealth through real estate. Another one is a lifestyle engineer. So you help people engineer their lives through real estate. Rescuer, you find fulfillment in helping people solve difficult problems, divorce, debt, death. Being an expert, so using your analytical mind to help people get the information they need to make the best decision. Competitor, you just like winning. You want to dominate and win the market. And then the dream giver, that's helping somebody realize their dreams of home ownership and laying down roots. But what I want you to hear is what Sarah just said, which is, if you're always going to get the intention that you had. And if your heart isn't in it, if you're not going to play the game through the lens of being invaluable and finding meaning in it, and it doesn't mean that we don't have rough spots or tough times, then I would ask you to be questioning, why am I playing at all? Because you're building your own house. And the question that I like to ask myself and ask other people is, what is the state that you are achieving from? Because if everything is obligation and you're having no fun, Gary says it himself, if it's no fun, then why do it? So how can you achieve through opportunity, through helping others, through meaning, while building your own house, right? And becoming invaluable in the process?